Next up, we're going to learn how to use conditionals in Python to take action based on a set of rules. In this lesson, you'll learn the coding concept of conditionals, the syntax of conditionals in Python, and how conditionals are used in computer programming. Let's imagine you're a video game designer. You need a way to move the character. Your hero in the video game needs to be able to do different moves, such as run forward, run backward, jump, or just stand still. How do you give your user the ability to take actions? You might use the computer keyboard or a console device like this one to interact with the game. You'll press buttons on the controller to move the character. The computer program needs a way to interpret these instructions to change the behavior of the character to move them around. So to handle those different options based on user input, we need something called a conditional. So what are conditionals? Conditionals are used to take action based on a set of rules. We often say that conditionals in computer programs allow the computer to make decisions. The computer is not really making decisions. The programmer has simply told the computer what to do in different situations based on a set of rules. So going back to our game controller, let's use 3 buttons. The character will not move unless you press one of the buttons like this. Press A to move forward. Press B to move backward. Press C to jump, or don't move, just stand still. Before we start to design code that can take this user input from the game controller, let's learn about the concept of conditionals in computer programming. So far, we've learned some keywords like for, while, and in. All of these words have a special meaning in Python. To use conditionals to help us handle user input by writing code in Python, we need 3 keywords: if, elif, and else. The if keyword in Python indicates that we're creating a new conditional, similar to the way the keyword for indicates that we're creating a for loop, and while indicates that we're creating a while loop. Elif is short for else if. It means that we're checking another condition if the previous condition or the previous statement was false. Else simply means the action the program will take if none of the previous statements or conditions are true. Sort of like saying, if all else fails, do this. So here's an example of the concept. If A is true, so if they push the A button, take this first action. If not, check the next statement. Elif B is true, take the second action. Otherwise, check the next statement. Elif C is true, take the third action. Otherwise, check the next statement. Or else, if none of the previous conditions are true, if they didn't press any buttons, take the fourth action. And this is the syntax of a conditional in Python. You can think of the keywords if, elif, and else in Python as a stoplight. If the stoplight is red, stop. Elif, the light is yellow, slow down and be prepared to stop. Else, keep driving. So going back to the video game design, you'll design a conditional to take different actions with the character on the screen depending on which button is pressed. In this game, users can only press one button at a time, so that means they can't do a combination of buttons like B and C at the same time. The code in Python will look something like this. Here's how Python interprets a conditional. It will interpret each rule from top to bottom and take action depending on which button is pressed. When it interprets that a specific button is pressed, it'll take action for that button and then continue on with the rest of the program. So that means it'll stop checking the other conditions and continue executing the rest of the code because it already knows which action to take. So let's interpret each line of code from top to bottom. If button A moves straight. If button A is pressed, the character in the video game will take the action to move forward. If button A is not pressed, check the next condition. Elif, button B, move backward. Elif means else if. So in English, it would simply say, if the previous statements are not true, check where the next statement is true. If button B is pressed instead of A, the character in the game will move backward. If A or B are not pressed, then it's going to check the next condition. Elif button C, jump. If the user presses button C instead of button A or B, the character will jump. Else, do not move. If no button is pressed, the character will stand still. So in this lesson, we learned the coding concept of conditionals, the syntax of conditionals in Python, and how conditionals are used in computer programming. We'll see on the next video of Breakbeat Code.